sometimes when somebody's very high achieving, they almost don't admit their own vulnerability to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can be so doubling down, and I was like this myself, so doubling down on like, I'm fine, I've got this, that
Yeah.
like you're not actually pausing and giving space to actually notice what you're emotionally experiencing and feeling.
Ever feel like you're in a constant competition between your career and your husband's patience? Your kids think you work too hard, but hey, you're doing it all for them, right? The struggle is real, and I've been there too. Moments of feeling like a crappy mom and wife because once again, your kids had breakfast on their way to school, and you've got more important things on your plate than cooking and cleaning. Hey there, working moms who are juggling a million things and still wondering if you're doing it right. I'm Veronica Cisneros, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a mama of 3, and married for 24 years. Welcome to the Empowered and Unapologetic podcast, where we dive deep into the messy, chaotic, and sometimes hilarious world of mastering motherhood, marriage, and business. I get it. Balancing it all was never the goal, but here we are, trying anyway. I'm here to share my journey and guide you through yours. No more apologies for being driven, and definitely no compromises on your dreams. Together, we'll navigate the challenges of being a powerhouse in both business and family life. Join me as we tackle the uncomfortable conversations from being the breadwinner to changing the rules of what a marriage looks like. Let's figure out how to parent in a working parent household without the constant arguments or guilt. I'm Veronica Cisneros, and this is Empowered and Unapologetic, where we embrace the chaos, challenge the norms, and strive to live life on our own terms. Get ready for some real talk, actionable tips, and a few laughs along the way. Hey ladies, welcome to the Empowered and Unapologetic podcast. I am your host, Veronica Cisneros. Today's guest is a best-selling author, Thais Gibson. She has a PhD and over 13 certifications in modalities such as CBT, NLP, somatic experiencing, internal family systems, and shadow work. She has nearly a decade of experience running a successful private practice and engaging with over 35,000 clients through individual sessions, workshops, and an educational platform. The Personal Development School was created by Thais Gibson when her private practice got fully booked with a 2-year waitlist. It quickly expanded to thousands of members and counting in 115 countries. The school has over 38 million views on social media. Thais, holy moly, you are a powerhouse. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited. Okay, so you had a 2-year wait list, solo practice. So how did you develop this idea of, okay, I'm not only going to serve my community, but I'm going to go ahead and serve millions of people?
I think a big part is that I'm just the type of person who, as soon as something's really meaningful to me and impactful, I just want to give it away. Like
Yeah,
for no matter what it is, I like eat at a good restaurant. I'm like, I have to tell everybody,
everyone has to know.
or I read a really good book and I'm buying the book and giving it to people. And for me, a huge part of this was that I was on my own healing journey for a long time. And one of the big parts of that healing journey was about learning to understand the subconscious mind and learning to
Yeah,
understand that like our conscious mind can't outwill and overpower our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is responsible for roughly 95 to 97% of our beliefs, our thoughts, our
yeah,
emotions, our decisions. And our conscious mind is 3 to 5%. And I felt like originally back, 14 years ago or so when I was learning about this, it was like nobody knew about it and nobody was talking about it.
yeah,
And so that was just so shocking to me. So I started by just giving free workshops to people. I was just like learning and learning, and I just wanted to share it and just wanted to
yep,
be able to sort of put it out there. And so did a whole bunch of free workshops, and they just kept kind of growing in size, and eventually I had about 100 people showing up to the different workshops, and it really quickly just translated into having a really, really busy practice. And then that turned into, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. People are getting frustrated with me because I have a 2-year wait list. How can I make this more scalable? How can I
Yeah.
turn this into something that makes more sense? And eventually that's how the idea of the personal development school came about.
Awesome. So there's a whole lot of things going on, right? You just published a book, you just finished with a book, right? Releasing the book, you have this goal. How did you start to develop either a system or a process? Because I'm with you. Like the minute I'm into something, I'm all about like, okay, how can I teach this? How can I share it? How did you develop a system or like how did you organize everything so that you can execute this and deliver it, you know, really
Yeah.
well? Right. Because I know for me, like I'm like so excited and it's like, okay, I'm going to do everything. And it's like, oh, well, it's not necessarily clear. Right. How did you get to that point?
Yeah, I actually I would say that there's a lot of things that I learned slowly, but for some reason, one thing that comes naturally to me is to be able to like have a goal and a vision and then just reverse engineer the steps to getting there.
Yeah.
So something I'm really in the habit of doing, like so I've written about 60 courses in PDS, and obviously you write like a 3-hour course and it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. But for me, it's always been like, here's the course. Okay, what do I want the modules to be of the course? Okay, what are the
Yeah.
key points I want to hit in each module? How long should each one be? And just being able to break it down into really small chunks. And that's how, for me, like something that's really big or many multiple sort of moving pieces can turn into very small actionable steps.
Bingo.
So that's a huge thing, is making sure that I'm doing that. And then I always time box stuff. So if I know, for example, that it's going to take me 20 hours to write a course, maybe I'll put 30 aside. And then rather than being like, okay, 30 aside, I'll actually plan into my schedule. Like, okay, that's going to be 5 hours a week for the
Yeah.
next 6 weeks, for example. And so that's how I'll just always make sure that there's room and time and show up for those things. I think another big part is quite honestly, I love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the type of personality, as I think many people are, of like, if I really didn't like it, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be able to execute at a high level. And I think that really helps that I'm aligned and I'm interested and I'm passionate about this stuff. It's like what I'm naturally learning about in my spare time. And I've had moments and things where I've been committed to different tasks or worked in different places. And like, if I don't love what I'm doing, I'm definitely not quite showing up in the same way. So I think that alignment in terms of like my subconscious needs and my conscious goals being in alignment with each other makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then one thing I've really had to get good at and practiced on constantly over the years is having good boundaries, because
Yes.
you can't, if you're saying yes to everything, then you're essentially saying no to the things that you really want to be doing, because you're really soaking up your time with so
Yeah.
many other things that are not that highest goal or focus area.
Absolutely. When did you notice the shift? Like for you personally, where you went from maybe where you were at before with, so many clients and maybe not setting boundaries to where you are today.
I would definitely say it was gradual. I actually started my client practice, and probably one of the things I had to focus on the most was boundaries.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize, I had thought that I had come a really long way with boundaries, because I had, from where I was at originally, like having almost no boundaries ever, to actually having like boundaries that maybe grew by 20-25%, but I still had like 75% of the way to go. There was still a lot of growth. And I honestly learned that one the very hard way. I learned that by, having so many clients, and I had done a lot of healing first on my own journey. I had a lot of
Yes.
work to do on myself, and did a ton of healing, and kind of had this story in my mind of like, oh, I've healed so much, I'm great,
I'm
and
totally
so I kept
good.
justifying, yeah, like I'm fine, I can handle everything. And so people would be like, oh my gosh, I'm suffering and you've helped me. And now my brother's suffering. Can you please help him? The only time he can see you is 8 p.m. on Friday.
Yeah,
Like
totally. I
he's,
totally do
and
that.
I would, in my mind at the time, especially that very first year, I would be like, well, I'm okay. I'm really good. I've healed a ton. I'm in a great space mentally, emotionally. This person's really suffering. So like, I should make sure that I show up and I have to
Yeah.
be there. And it was like that I realized after like a year of doing this and then getting like on the cusp of being actually burned out, like really
Yeah.
struggling, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm doing this thing where, because other people are in more pain than I am, I'm justifying violating my own boundaries of what actually can keep me balanced and in alignment and like energized and showing up as my best self. And that was a really important lesson for me because I was good at setting boundaries with people who weren't suffering. But as soon as
Yes.
somebody was in pain or suffering, I'd be like, oh, my boundaries no longer matter because they're hurting more than me.
Yeah.
And that was something that I really had to learn the hard way. And that I was seeing like 40, it's actually crazy, but I was seeing like 40 clients a week, but I'd see them for
Yeah.
like hour and a half long sessions. And I would just pack in the work in person, heavy duty. And I'm an introvert, like I'm an INFJ. I need that little bit of alone time to reflect and have space and things like that to feel really balanced. And so it was just really meaningful for me to learn that. And it was not always easy. And it got better over time. I mean, I've definitely like had a huge improvement after learning that the hard way and like having to really focus in on it and practice like outlining what are my boundaries with work, like where does it
Yeah.
need to stop, and then like reorganizing that. And then now in business, having a company, we have about 35 or so employees. And like I've had to really learn how to have boundaries with people in negotiations and in discussions and in real time, and not just like these boundaries that are set out ahead of time, but kind of like active boundaries, like knowing how to have these like live boundaries in real
Yeah.
time. And that really sort of pushed me to the next level that way of like being able to put my foot down if something's not working, or
Yeah.
communicate really directly in a negotiation. And a lot of those things have been really meaningful lessons along the way.
I love that. I could totally relate with you. I would be like, I remember I'd finish up and it'd be like, 8:30 and a client, I'm really struggling right now. I'm in your area. Is there any chance you would see me? And I'm like, yeah, I could totally. I got 2 more hours in me. I totally have 2 more hours in me. I got you. Yeah, come on by. And I never thought about it in the way that you just explained it. And I love how you just said it. It was like I was able to set boundaries with people that were not hurting, but the ones that were, it was like, okay, how can I help take this pain away? How can I help them figure out this formula? So yeah, I totally can see you till like 9:30. No biggie. I'm fine. You're fine. You will be fine. Yeah, I love that. So attachment styles. What ended up like, why would you say you totally like, what attracted you to that? Was it something personal for you? Why attachment styles?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was a fearful avoidant attachment style, aka the disorganized attachment style. So I saw like a tremendous amount of chaos growing up, big fights, big arguments, explosive divorce,
Oh
all
my
the
God.
things,
Yeah.
very, very dramatic. And I was the oldest child. So I have a younger sister. And I definitely was like parentified a lot. So I was definitely put in the
Yes.
middle a lot from a very young age. And I know that that was my parents. Like I have really wonderful parents, but they were doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. And they were
Yeah.
definitely so consumed by like the pain. They definitely had like a trauma bond. And, the stuff that they were going through with each other, I think they just they couldn't comprehend how their actions would maybe be affecting the children in the household. So
Yeah.
for me, I think at a very young age, it definitely planted the seeds of like, why does it have to be like this? Why are these sorts
Yeah.
of things happening? Can't there be a better way? I would always go back and forth and try to like communicate to the other one for one another. And all these different things. But really, ultimately, I learned to just walk on extreme eggshells all the time and be extremely hypervigilant. And then, of
Yep.
course, as an adult, if anybody's familiar with the fearful avoidant attachment style, the essential premise is that you get competing ideas about love. You have some really nice moments, really positive moments, and you have some really scary or terrible moments that are
Yeah.
really hard. And so you get this kind of anxious side of like not wanting to be abandoned and not wanting to lose love, but you absolutely have this really avoidant side too, where it's like, but I don't trust love. So
Yeah.
love should not get too close to me. And so you end up as an adult becoming this very hot and cold person in relationships. And ultimately for me, I was really great at relationships when it was in like the dating and honeymoon stage, like those early stages. But as soon as things got real and I actually attached to somebody, which progresses somebody into often the power struggle stage, I couldn't, like, I would just unravel. I would end up in a position where I would like feel terrified. It was almost like the more I loved someone, the more,
Yeah.
or the more attached I was, the more afraid I became.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just pinball back and forth, like, come close, come close. Someone gets close to me, like, get back. And I knew that I was showing up in like a very volatile way in relationships. I knew that I was like really loving one day and really pulling back the next. And I knew that that was happening. And I just didn't really understand it. I just thought that that was everybody's experience with relationships, and
Yeah.
relationships are really hard. And I ultimately actually started doing a lot of healing around the subconscious mind, knowing that I had a lot of like core wounds
Mm-hmm.
and issues around trust or abandonment, issues around feeling trapped or helpless or powerless,
Yeah.
feeling unsafe in relationships, at least emotionally. And I knew that I had a lot of work to do there. So I really started with a lot of that core wound reprogramming. And then I really did a lot of work on like learning my needs. What do I actually need from people? And first learning to meet those needs actively in the relationship to myself.
Yeah.
And then learning to actually communicate with other people in my life and actually discuss the needs that I was having from others and learn to receive them. And I did a lot of like this healing work around these core wounds and these needs and a lot of emotional regulation, a lot of nervous system work.
Yes.
And then I actually revisited attachment styles. I was running my practice at this point. I did a lot of internal healing, feeling much better. Revisited attachment styles and realized a lot of the work I was doing on like core wounds and needs and emotional and nervous system regulation and boundaries, a lot of these things that I was starting to work on with people and in myself fit really neatly into each of these categories of attachment styles. And I realized, oh my goodness, the anxious attachment style has like the I will be abandoned, I'll be alone, I'll be disliked,
Yeah.
rejected, excluded, not good enough. Those are their core wounds. The dismissive avoidant is like terrified of being trapped or helpless or powerless or weak if they're vulnerable or shamed and feeling defective. They take very poorly to criticism. And they often feel emotionally unsafe. And then the fearful avoidant basically has to share of both. And the same thing happened with needs. They each had unique needs for what they're looking for in a relationship. They each had unique relationships to how they would set boundaries, how they would communicate. So I was like, wow, all these things I've been working on first in myself and then actually moving into client practice as I went through school and started working with people. They actually fit really powerfully into these categories of attachment styles. And so what I realized is you could take somebody's attachment style, know what core wounds you have to do subconscious reconditioning on,
Yeah.
know what needs that the person has to actually learn to meet themselves, express in their relationships to
Mm-hmm.
others, know their boundary issues they were going to struggle with and how they can improve them, and know how they can communicate better and regulate their nervous system. So there was these really profound things that just fit very nicely into there. So I ultimately just moved quickly into working with people in that context because it was like once I knew their attachment style, we could really break these things
Mm-hmm.
down. And then my first sort of background in training out of school was in hypnotherapy. I did this year-long training in hypnotherapy, and so I wouldn't do like hypnosis sessions as much because I didn't think they were. It was kind of like give a man a fish rather than teach
Yeah.
the man to fish kind of
Yeah.
dynamics. But I wanted to teach people how to reprogram their own subconscious mind based in principles of neuroplasticity and hypnotherapy. So we went that direction, and I saw really cool results and really really profound shifts and changes in people as with myself. And I realized, oh, like attachment theory doesn't talk about how we can actually change our attachment
Yeah.
style. It just gives you this sort of outline at a very high level about what attachment styles are. So that became a big focus area of my work.
I know looking for the right therapist can be challenging. However, feeling overwhelmed and disconnected is even harder. Life is filled with several twists and turns, some more severe than others. We do our best to handle them as they come and find ourselves at a loss, not knowing what to do or who to turn to. The clinicians here at Outside the Norm Counseling are here to help. We are here to assist you through this time of need. Together, we will identify your strengths and goals and teach you healthy coping skills. Together, we will develop a plan to help you live the life you want to live. Our team is compassionate, genuine, and we take a great deal of pride in providing an empathetic, non-judgmental approach to all of our clients. It's time! You've waited long enough, whether it be for you, your child, or if you're in need of a couple session. We are highly trained clinicians ready to guide you. Schedule an appointment now by calling 951-395-3288. Again, that number is 951-395-3288. We're looking forward to meeting you and being a part of your journey.
I love that. I love that it has this personal attachment, right? Like from your personal story and how you were able to identify, like, wait a minute, a lot of the things that I'm doing, it's a reflection of where my relationship is at. And also honing in on like what you were like what issues you were bringing into the relationship, and wanting to work on them and being willing to go ahead and do that personal work. I love that. That right there is sort of like this proof of the pride in the work that you do, because it's like,
Oh, thank
it's,
you.
yeah, because it's like, no, like for real, I did it. Like these are the things I needed to do. So
Yeah.
what would you say for, like, let's say most high achieving women, right? Most women that are out there that are like willing to look at fear in the face and say, I'm going to challenge it, or like have all these big dreams and are like, let's just do it. What would you say is a common issue that maybe comes up for you when you're working with them?
Um, I would say, to be honest, sometimes when somebody's very high achieving, they almost don't admit their own vulnerability to themselves.
Mhm.
Because you can be so doubling down, and I was like this myself, so doubling down on like, I'm fine, I've got this, that
Yeah.
like you're not actually pausing and giving space to actually notice what you're emotionally experiencing and feeling.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, as a result of being kind of disconnected from our own emotions in real time, one of the things that often that manifests as is that somebody will not even realize that a boundary was violated because they're
Yeah.
disconnected from their own emotions, which is our personal feedback
Yep.
mechanism that we have a boundary. And then usually that looks like, I violate a boundary in real time of myself. I say yes when it's a no for me. And then 2 weeks later, I'm upset about it, and maybe I even become explosive in my anger or frustration at other people.
Yeah.
Or another variation is that we just can be so hardworking and so doubled down before healing that it's like you don't realize how much you're abandoning yourself in the process. Or being unwilling to be vulnerable and ask for support from people because you've
Yeah.
got it. But actually, we get way further ahead, both in our careers and in our
Yeah.
personal lives, when we're willing to have that vulnerability, willing to be able to rely on others and ask for that support. So there's a lot of benefits of being high achieving and being tough and resilient, of course. But I think we want to avoid it becoming a mutually exclusive thing where that comes at the expense of connection to self, space to
Yep.
notice our feelings and needs and boundaries, and also the ability to also rely on people and ask for support sometimes too, because the high achieving ones are usually the ones supporting everybody and
Yes.
then almost blocking their reception of support from other people.
How would you say, how would you say this change, this transition, you doing your own personal work, how has that changed your personal relationships and your business?
Oh, a lot. A lot. I actually don't think I could really have a functional relationship before I did a lot of this work. Like, sure, sure,
I
sure
love
on the
that you just said
outside.
that.
I'm just being honest. I feel like on the outside, maybe it was like, oh yeah, my relationships are fine. But I would go, there's this body of work from Dr. Susan Johnson, and I've spoken a lot into this, where she talks about how we have the 6 stages of relationships.
Mhm.
She starts off with the honeymoon stage. I've separated them out. She had 5 stages. I've separated them out because I think the dating and honeymoon stage are very separate stages. Dating is like our
Totally.
vetting, getting to know somebody.
Yep.
Once we make a commitment, we move into the honeymoon stage. And then preceding those stages are the power struggle stage. And if we make it through the power struggle stage, we go stability, commitment, and bliss stages. And what's so interesting to me is like I reflect on past relationships before my now husband, but before that, I would always be like dating, honeymoon stage, then the power struggle stage, breakup, and redo. And
And
I
let's do
never
this again.
learned exactly the next person to have that experience with.
Yeah.
And and so it's interesting because actually learning to be vulnerable, actually learning to communicate my needs, actually learning to not jump to the conclusions of these preconceived core wounds that I
Yeah.
had around betrayal or abandonment or being trapped, actually being able to recondition those things and then speak into my needs and vulnerably ask for help and receive support was like so meaningful for me. And it was actually the first time that I felt like I really experienced more unconditional love because I was showing myself with less
Yes.
conditions. And so it's like, when you go prior to that, you're like, oh yeah, like I have to be on my best behavior. I better people please or show up,
Mhm.
and when you're not able to really share like, hey, I feel afraid or hey, I
Yeah.
feel hurt by this experience and I really need you to be more mindful of ABC next
Yep.
time. Before you can say those things and share those things, it's like you're only giving room to be loved conditionally because
Yeah.
again, you're showing yourself with conditions all the time. And so it was really meaningful for me. I mean, I've been with my husband now. We've been together for like almost 9 years. So it's been a long time that I
Yeah.
have been in the work for. But prior to him, like I don't think, and he showed up really well for a lot of the work as well. I wasn't like in a perfect space when I met him, but I had done a lot of work ahead of time, and
Mm-hmm.
we worked through a lot of stuff together.
Of course.
Um, but for sure, like it revolutionized the way I saw and felt about relationships, because prior to that, I just felt like they were really hard and
Mm-hmm.
confusing and overwhelming and lots of ups and downs. And I was probably a bit of a roller coaster to date, because I'd be so conflicting with my messaging, like loving and kind, and then just kind of go missing for days at a time and all over the map. But yeah, I think it's been really, really meaningful work for me. And for sure that helped me in business. Like, I have a I have two business partners now, and I have a great relationship with both of them. But there's been times where we've had to have really hard conversations.
Yes.
And if I hadn't already learned how to get really good at having really hard conversations, then they say, what do they say? The quote is like, businesses don't fail, partnerships fail.
Yeah.
There, who knows, like knock on wood, but I feel like I have so much trust in both of the business partners I have, and so much like a sense of certainty that we can get through things. And if something hard comes up, we'll talk
Yeah.
it out, we'll hash it out. And that for sure became the result of first building those communication tools in my relationship with my husband, and also with different family members and very close people in my life.
Yeah. There's this component of vulnerability, and being able, to say the things that you're experiencing. I remember there was, and I've shared this before, but there was one time when my husband and I we were arguing, and I remember me saying, and I felt like the biggest idiot saying it out loud. I even was like, "Why would you say that out loud? You're so stupid. Should have just kept it to yourself." But I remember, asking him something along the lines of, you know, "Do you still love me even though you're mad at me?" And then I remember saying it and then going, "God, you're such an idiot. Why would you say that?" Like, now he has control over you, because that's what I was taught. I was taught that the minute you're vulnerable, like, somebody now has the full ability to go ahead and take charge, and now they're in control of you, which obviously was a lie. But I remember saying that and, like, totally wanting to, like, kick myself. And he, like, stopped. He was cutting I still remember he was cutting bell peppers, and I remember he just stopped and, like, kinda, like, turned to me and was like, "I don't stop loving you because I'm mad at you. Like, we could be in an argument and I'm still gonna love you." And then I was like, "Oh, okay, totally. That's awesome." And I remember continuing washing dishes. And it was like, God, going to therapy, this is when I was in grad school, and I'm like, God, this therapy shit sucks. This totally sucks. I don't want to be vulnerable. And there was this sense of relief though at the same time, because it's like, whoa, that was something so big. And it was met with just this love, and it wasn't even met with validation. Like, I kind of want to do this more, but I mean,
Yeah.
calm down, Willie. Like, don't get all crazy. I'm not going to do this every day. But I remember, like, oh, this felt so good. And
Yeah.
it does change. It changes everything. It changes you're going to be doing it scared, ladies. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And it's going to be uncomfortable. But it's just like, God, that surrender, it is life-changing,
I
1,000% life-changing.
love that story. I think that's one of the most beautiful, like, first shares about that. I get to have the blessing of hearing so many
Yeah,
people's stories of moments like that, and that's just such a beautiful one. Like, just being able to say, even though, you're mad at me, do you still love me? Because
yeah,
that's what we need. And it's exactly like, I feel like you just said it so perfectly. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that.
yeah,
But then you like when we're in a relationship that's meaningful and that's actually meant to be in our lives, which I think for the vast majority of people will be so pleasantly
yeah.
surprised by how well those conversations do go. But when you're in the right relationship that's worth having those conversations with, like, it's so relieving and it feels so good. And it's almost like a little bit addictive in a sense, because then you're like, I'm
Yes.
going to share, I'm going to
Let's do
speak like
it
this more often.
again.
It feels like such a relief. But like, that's like, in my opinion, that's what more unconditionally based love is built on, is being able
Yes.
to say things like that in those moments. It's not just you being tough and shut down. And it's actually being able to open in those moments and bring closeness through those difficult times. And that's part of like the purpose of a conflict, right? Is
Mhm.
like the conflict itself is like a crisis, but it's an opportunity for moments like
Yes.
that. So I love that. That's so beautiful.
Yes. What would you say are 2 steps that, women like ourselves can take right now to improve their relationship with themselves?
It's a great question. I think one of the first things to do is, if you're not already familiar and you haven't done needs work, it's so important to do work in regards to your needs. So what that looks like is, some people are like, how do I start? How do I even
Yeah.
figure out what my needs are? And one of the best places to start, if you have no idea, is try to look on, you can ask yourself two major questions. One is, when I'm in a relationship with others, what would be the perfect things they would do for me? And, in a perfect relationship, a perfect world, like being all idealistic about it, would they be supportive? Would they be consistent? Would they be giving me a lot of certainty, reassurance, validation? Would they be very present in the relationship, spend a lot of quality time? Like, just really like writing about that and getting clear about that. And then what I always get people to do is, in a column next to those things they wrote out, rate how good they are at giving those things to themselves from 1 to 10, because these
Yes.
are the things that we're needing from the outside world are actually things that we tend to be in a little bit of learned helplessness with in the relationship to self. And then we have to come up with actual strategies for
Yep.
like, how can we meet these needs in the relationship to ourselves more often. And what's interesting is, a lot of the time when we need something from others, and you can really see it with attachment styles, like anxious, preoccupied, some of their kind of like unreasonable relationship expectations are things like, my partner should be available to soothe me at all times, or my partner should know how I feel if they
Yeah.
love me. I shouldn't have to communicate. And what that represents are those expectations we have are usually because we're in learned helplessness there. Like, we don't know how to
Yeah.
self-soothe if you're anxious, or we don't know how to, tell somebody clearly what we're feeling and what we're needing from them. And so what you'll see is that by actually being able to give these things in the relationship to yourself first, you're reconditioning the subconscious comfort zone. And your subconscious mind, it really works to retain its comfort zone. It will actually really resist things that are unfamiliar, because it equates familiarity to safety and
Yep.
thus survival.
Yep.
And so, funnily enough, the things that we're not giving to ourselves, we also struggle to receive. So you'll see, for example, if somebody doesn't know how to validate themselves or encourage themselves, it may feel really good for a moment when someone else does it, but you may deflect it, or you
Yep.
may doubt it, or you may, in your mind, even feel questionable or like suspicious about it. Oh, do they have an ulterior motive? They couldn't really mean that. Is it too good to be true? And part of it's because your subconscious is just trying to retain this comfort zone of what's familiar. So
Yep.
needs work is so important, because when we learn to meet our own needs and also learn to discover what they actually are, not only do we feel more comfortable communicating them to others, but we actually build better habits around receiving. So that would be like big part number one. And then big part number two is, we have to shed our stories. We take so many stories from our childhood. I had so many personally, like, I can't trust anyone. All men are bad.
Yeah.
All these terrible things
All men are going to cheat
that
on you.
everyone will get bored and leave,
Yeah.
or you'll find somebody and then you'll be trapped, then
Yeah.
you'll be in the wrong relationship forever, like all these fears. And of course, you can't properly love and open yourself when you're believing these things at a deeper level,
No.
because the more you love, the more you're going to be hurt when the person cheats or leaves or betrays or gets bored, or all these things that you've already assigned the future of your life and relationships. So, we can do a lot of reprogramming. Like, we're not born with these stories. We can actually do a lot of reconditioning work using principles of basically, our subconscious mind is reprogrammed through repetition, emotion, and imagery. So I'll actually share a tool if that's okay.
Yes,
For anyone
please.
who wants to do some of this. So when you look at like a wound, so let's say somebody, just for simplicity's sake, has a big wound of, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
When we want to reprogram the wound, we can't just really use affirmations, because affirmations are very conscious mind. Okay?
Thank you so much for saying that. If anybody tells you that, run. Please run. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's nice to say I love you in the mirror, and it's nice to say I'm a good person. However, when shit hits the fan, that doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
I really agree with that. It's in the hard moments that doesn't do anything for you, right? That's
No.
exactly it. And so the reason is that our conscious mind speaks language, but our subconscious mind, where the wounds exist. Because your conscious mind never wakes up in the morning and says, today I'm going to tell myself all the reasons I'm going to be abandoned and all the reasons I'm not good enough. Those are not choices. Those are subconscious programs that are pre-existing. So we can't solve a conscious mind or a subconscious mind problem at the conscious mind level.
No.
And so that's why affirmations, they're just language. They won't reach your subconscious mind. Another reason this is if I say to you, okay, whatever you do not think of the pink elephant. Well, you probably thought of the pink elephant
All
because the
day.
subconscious pictured it. And so what happens is this, the conscious mind hears language, the subconscious mind speaks in emotion and imagery.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets rewired through the firing and wiring that's leveraged through repetition of emotion and imagery.
Yep.
So when we want to actually reprogram this, like a painful idea, I'll be betrayed, I'll be abandoned, I'm not good enough, we have to first find the opposite is step one. So I'm not good enough, I am good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I will be betrayed, I will have loyalty, I will be abandoned, I will stay connected, or I'm worthy of connection, I'm unloved, I'll be, I'm worthy of love. So we find the opposite. And then for repetition, we have to come up with 10 is the number, pieces of memory to oppose the original core wound. So if I'm not good enough, I'm good enough, 10 pieces of memories. I graduated with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did this great thing at work. I showed up as a good friend yesterday. Memories, what they are is they are emotions and imagery.
Yes.
So if you think of your favorite childhood memory, you'll see the images of it in your mind. Oh, I was on the playground and this happened, and you'll actually feel the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we get our conscious mind to actually get down and communicate to our subconscious mind. And when we do this repetitively, we're actually firing and wiring these new neural pathways at the subconscious level. So really simple tool. I'm not good enough. I am good enough. 10 pieces of memory for why you are good enough. It doesn't even matter if they're really small, like small things. Like I brushed my teeth and got out of bed at my first alarm this morning. Like you get the emotion imagery, you get the firing and wiring. And if you do it for 21 days, research shows very conclusively you can make very deep new neural networks within that 21-day period to oppose these old sort of programs that we were sitting with. And I've done a tremendous amount of reprogramming. I've seen tens of thousands of people at this point do it. And it really, really works. And it's a very worthwhile endeavor.
I absolutely love that. You're challenging the thought distortion and providing evidence that this thought distortion is not true. And yeah, I agree with you. Start off small. Why? Because it's going to be easier for you to go ahead and become familiar with this exercise and do it more frequently so that you can go to those bigger, greater memories. I love that exercise. Thank you so much for giving that to us. You guys, if you guys didn't write that down, like pause, rewind, write this down, because Thais is giving like gold right here. So for those that want to work with you, how do we go about working with you?
So I actually don't see clients anymore. I was in client practice for almost 10 years and then transitioned over to the school because it got so busy in there. But basically, I have a whole program. It's called the Personal Development School.
Yes.
And basically, the main focus area of the school is we have programs for people to become securely attached. So we start with like belief reprogramming. It's all personal development for the subconscious mind. So it's rooted in principles of hypnosis.
Yes.
So we have for each attachment style, how to reprogram beliefs, how to understand your needs, how to communicate effectively using really core principles of like nonviolent communication, things of that nature, how to recondition our relationship to our boundaries, and also how to rewire our different painful behavioral coping mechanisms, pushing people away, stonewalling, how to understand that they're actually just trying to meet needs that we're not meeting in healthier forms, and how to recondition that sort of set of behaviors. And then the last focus area is how to reprogram your nervous system sort of set point function. If we're always in fight or flight versus if we're in parasympathetic. So we have these programs. They are set up for 90 days.
Nice.
And then we actually have a whole bunch of coaches and facilitators in there, including myself. So there's actually a daily webinar if people want to join, or social event separate from that. If people want to go hang out with other people, practice the tools, they're guided by facilitators, counselors, coaches. So it's at the Personal Development School. There's lots of cool stuff happening in there.
I love it. And then where can we find you on social media?
So I put daily content out on YouTube, Personal Development School Thais Gibson. And then the website as well is personaldevelopmentschool.com. And on Instagram, it's personaldevelopment_school.
Nice. We are going to have all of this in the show notes. Thais, this was an absolute pleasure. There's so many things I can totally relate with you on. I'm like, oh my God, we're totally sisters, because I grew up similar to that, minus the divorce, even though I prayed for them to get a divorce. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. Thank you so much for jumping on. I'm excited for the audience to go ahead and learn and grow from you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed speaking with you.
Raise your hand if you are ready to level up your marriage for 2023. Do you find that you're spending your time together with your husband checked out and in front of the TV? I know you're ready for tangible strategies that actually get you results. Reignite the spark in your marriage, have fun, and grow together. Well, I hope you have your hand raised at this minute because I have something special for you. I'm introducing my brand new 6-question marriage predictor quiz that's gonna give you personalized results to catapult you into the next stage of your marriage journey. That means you'll receive the results to where your marriage can get the best help. If you've got just 1 minute, head to veronicacisneros.org/quiz. Again, that's veronicacisneros.org/quiz, and you could take my brand new quiz, Marriage Predictor. Get your results delivered right to your email address. Again, that's veronicacisneros.org/quiz, veronicacisneros.org/quiz. What's up, ladies? Just want to let you guys know that your ratings and reviews for this podcast are greatly appreciated. If you love this podcast, please go to iTunes right now, write a review, rate the episode, and subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends.
Oh, hey, it's Erin.
And I'm Michaela, and we're the hosts of the Two Sober Girls podcast, and we are on a mission to spill the wild truth about sobriety.
Forget the rosé all day cliche. Sobriety is flipping amazing.
Absolutely. It's not just about quitting the drink. It's a gift you give yourself and your loved ones.
So what are you waiting for? Break up with that old toxic relationship with alcohol and let us show you the possibilities.
And here's the thing. Everything your precious heart desires becomes way easier without the influence of alcohol.
We're not just two sober girls, we're also wellness coaches. We're here to show you how to optimize health, lifestyle, and beauty, feel sexy and alive as F.
So stay tuned because we're rolling out new episodes every Monday wherever you get your podcasts, and trust us, they have your name written all over them. We can't wait to share the magic of sobriety and wellness with you. Subscribe to Two Sober Girls podcast today and come follow us on Instagram for behind the scenes action and send us a DM. We can't wait to meet you.